across the galaxy. This is where conspiracy on the wild side meets the perspective of a lifetime. This is the Free Zone with your host, Freeman.
Hello and welcome to the Free Zone. Well, I know all of you out there are wonderful people, and that is because I've met a majority of you guys out there, and I know that the Free Zone audience is one of the best group of people you could have in your life. And through this, we started the friendship agenda, trying to get all of us together so that we can find one another and feel like we actually have a tribe. Now, you have heard me say many times that I feel humans are loving, generous, caring beings that live on this planet that want to have goodness and humanity around them. And this may make you think that I've lived somewhat of a sheltered life and that I wouldn't know anything about the actual humans around me if they came up and bit me in the butt. Well, you know, guys, I have been bullied, beat up, mugged, abducted, incarcerated, all of the worst things that you could possibly imagine have happened to me. And yet, I still have this unerring faith in humanity. Now, you may think that you are in an asylum run by the inmates, but the truth is, the inmates created the asylum, and now we all have to live in it together. We're going to learn about pathological narcissism. We're going to learn about psychopaths and the warrior inside required to break this chain of despair. We are talking tonight with Stefan Verstappen. His website is chinastrategies.com, and he is the author of The Art of Urban Survival. Stephen has been a Canadian author, researcher, and adventurer. He's written dozens of articles for magazines. His books, The Way of the Warrior, The 36 Strategies of Ancient China, and of course, The Art of Urban Survival. He's worked as an instructor at St. John's Ambulance, which is a wilderness guide. Let me say it again. He has worked as an instructor for St. John's Ambulance. He's been a wilderness guide, a community organizer, and most especially a martial arts instructor for over 35 years, including 5 years of study in China. He's the creator of the viral YouTube documentary Defense Against the Psychopath and Paradise Stolen. And we're going to learn so much and have such a good time talking with Stefan today. So, Stefan, welcome to the Free Zone.
Thanks for having me on, Freeman. Big fan.
Hey, thank you. My pleasure. And I think that's awesome. I think that's great. Because we are here, Stefan. We are in this insane asylum, and we're looking around us. And, I mean, we're pretty certain that a quarter of the people around us, 25% of the people around us are actually psychopaths. Would you agree with this?
Yeah, 25% seems to be high. Most researchers place them at 2 to 5%. But if you factor into account the number of what are known as secondary psychopaths or created psychopaths, people that learn to become psychopaths because that's how society taught them how to behave, then certainly we're up to 25% of the people around us are psychopaths, and that's a really bad situation to be in.
Yeah, that just leaves you wondering. I mean, if I can, well, I got many layers I want to go with you here, Stefan, and we're going to talk about our life stories. We're going to talk about the warrior versus the psychopath. But I thought maybe we'd start with my Twitter feed and just kind of go over a little bit of the news, because it blows my mind every time I'm about to have a guest on. It just seems that the news is going to follow this exact mindset to help us define this a little more for our future. So, folks, if you want to follow along, of course, I am Freeman TV, or at Freeman TV on Twitter. And you can also link there from any page on freemantv.com. So one of the first things I'm thinking about here, Stefan, is we're looking at psychopaths. and these psychopaths want to be in charge. Well, before we get to the news, let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, could we get to a point in society where anyone that wanted to be the leader just was ineligible?
Yeah, no. Anybody who's decent and has a conscience is ineligible for public leadership or public office. That's just a fact of the matter. There is nobody in politics that's not a psychopath. I'm willing to state that. I'm willing to stand behind it. I mean, I'm willing to go to trial and present evidence because it's a self-filtering system, which means, I remember when I was young, I was traveling through France with a friend of mine, and he was the son of a famous judge here in Canada. And this was his last hurrah traveling through, he went everywhere. We went everywhere, Africa, Europe, Spain. And I said to him, so after this trip is over, you're going back to law school? He says, yeah. I said, but you know what's going to happen, right? He goes, yeah, I know, but I can change it from the inside. I need to become a lawyer, just like it's a family tradition. And then, by the way, he is a judge now, too. And then I need to become a judge, and then I can change it from the inside. I said, but that's not the way it works, because either they convert you into a psychopath or otherwise you don't progress. And that's the way the system works. So if you go into, any of these institutions like law school or government or higher learning, you have to toe the party line. And by towing the party line, that means you have to behave and think and act like a psychopath because it's run by psychopaths. They don't want people that have a conscience in their private circles figuring out what they're doing. So they will do everything they can to keep those kind of people out. So you won't get any good people in politics. I'm sorry. I mean, I have no faith in Trump. I have no faith in any of these people. It doesn't matter who you elect. They've already been filtered out. They wouldn't even be on the ticket unless there was some DVD tape of them raping a child, and that tape is locked up in a vault somewhere in Tel Aviv. You wouldn't get anywhere near power. And the same thing with my friend there from France. Yeah, he's become a lawyer now. He's become a judge. Has he done anything to change the system? No. I emailed him a couple of years ago and said, oh, you want to get together? And his wife intercepted the email and said, no, he doesn't want anything to do with you. So,
right.
Well, so there you go. Because why? I know why. Because I have a conscience, and I tried to prick his conscience 40 years ago. I tried to prick his conscience a little bit because I was red-pilled like from an early age. I already knew the system was corrupt and evil, and I knew how it worked. That good people are not promoted. Good people are not advanced in the corporation, because if you're not willing to, cheat some widow out of her life savings or take food out of the hands of a starving baby, you are not going to succeed in the world that we have created here. So that tells me, the psychopaths end up in positions of power. And I told that to him. I said, you're not going to make it. And he goes, oh, no, I'll make it. So now, does he want to talk to me 40 years later? No, of course not, because I would only remind him of how he betrayed his own values. Well, but he's got the big house now, okay? He's doing good. He's got lots of money and kids and, a lot of respect and all that. But, okay, yeah, good for you.
Right. I mean, clearly George W. Bush, George H.W. Bush, Hillary Clinton, and probably even Donald Trump, although I'd put him in the narcissist category. The others, absolutely, without a doubt, pathological liars and psychopaths. I mean, Hillary, obviously, just a psychopath. George Bush, W, he's a dupe and just a psychopath,
I know. Like, not all psychopaths are geniuses, as evidenced by George W.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, this guy is he's an idiot, a psychopath, but an idiot on top of it all. I mean, how people couldn't see that, you see these guys, they can barely speak, they can barely, put one foot in front of the other, and yet, and then you see the deadness in their eyes, and oh my God, and then you wonder, how could anybody vote for these people? And I mean, that's all of them, any of them, all of them. Haven't voted in 45 years,
Okay, so looking at that, when we're looking at the idea that we got to have a winning team, right? So often people will say, well, I'm not going to vote for Bernie because, it's just throwing away my vote. I got to vote for the winner. And that very mindset right there is keeping everything in line and in check so that we feel like our team has won. Yay, yay Republicans, we won this time, right?
Yeah, red team, blue team. Woo.
And all of that's just engineered right into our educational system. The idea that you want to go beat up another school people, people that are an opposing team. And we relish in this in our high schools that we're going to go and kill, defeat, murder, slaughter, stomp, all the things that we use in our pep rallies to say we're going to go. And then, children are being beat up because they go to a different high school than this. So it starts right there, right?
Oh, yeah. And it's all socially engineered. I mean, they've known this stuff for years. There was an experiment done back in the 1950s, a psychological experiment, along the similar lines to the Milgram experiment. You remember that one with the electrocution
The
machine.
authority, yeah.
The authority, right? So they did another one, and it's called the Robbers Cave experiment. And Robbers Cave is a national park now. Wyoming, Idaho, I forget which state it's in, but it used to be a hideout for train robbers in the 1800s, and they called it the Robbers Cave. But it's now a big Boy Scout camp and a national park. And so they did these experiments with Boy Scouts. And what they did is they divided them up into two teams, red team, blue team. This is so basic. It's so easy to do this. The people that run this world are laughing themselves silly how we are, bickering amongst each other over nothing. But anyways, getting back to the Boy Scouts. And so in the first half of the summer, what they did is they would pair the two teams against each other in competitive activities, like who could, raise a tent the fastest, or who could chop the most firewood in 1 hour, and with the winners being rewarded and the losers being punished. So the winners would get an extra hamburger at dinner time or something, and the losers had to clean the latrines, right? So they studied these Boy Scouts, and sure enough, after a couple of weeks, I mean, the violence between the two groups was, increasing. There were like midnight raids where they would, one cabin would break down the door of the other cabin and trash their stuff. And there was all kinds of name calling, and became more and more hostile to the point where they had to, intervene. And finally, sort of the same thing with the what was that prison experiment? Stanford prison experiment. They wanted to run that for a month, but they had to close it down after a week because the violence increased so quickly and became so violent so fast that they could no longer control it. So they shut it down. So this is what happens when you divide people up into in-group, out-group, and you force them to compete against each other in a zero-sum game where one person wins and the other person loses. One person gets benefits and the other person suffers, which is our society now. We are in a zero-sum game. There's the winners and there's the losers, and the winners get the fancy house and the big car and all the bleach blonde girls, and the losers have to sleep in cardboard boxes on the streets. And so, it's easy to pit them together. To pitch them against each other. So what they then did is they changed the tactics at the Robbers Cave experiment. What they did now was they got rid of the different colors. Oh, no, they kept the different colors, but instead of there being a winner and a loser, they had the teams partner up to complete the tasks. And then everybody would get rewarded and nobody would get punished. And within, 2 or 3 weeks, the whole Boy Scout camp was getting along fine again. There was none of the inter-team rivalry anymore. There was no fights. There was no midnight, trash the cabin things. And everybody got along really well. So what it shows you is that we could very easily all of us cooperate for the mutual benefit of everyone in society, this is an easy thing to do, but it's also just as easy to force us to fight each other. And because we have psychopaths in charge, they don't want people cooperating for the, the greater betterment of all. They want people to be miserable and to fight each other and attack each other, and there's going to be the big winners and the big losers. That's what the psychopaths want. That's what they like. And so that's why they've engineered our society to be this way. So we've got, right wing and left wing and this and that. And there is no right wing and left wing, you morons. You're split up into this arbitrary team so that you can fight against each other, when the reality is we are all in the slave pens together. We need to unite to fight for our freedom, not drag each other down back into the pot. And so that's what's going on with politics, and that's why I don't participate.
Yeah, I don't really either. And this sounds like an episode of Survivor. That seemed like a sociological experiment right there, just to see, you can watch again and again every week, if, back in the day when, and see that the psychopaths would rise and the weak would be taken off in the very first beginnings. And then as the teammates became one tribe, then they'd start leaving the weaker ones and start fighting and taking on the bigger, the kings of the tribes, and start to take them down. And I really feel like that show was there as this sociological experiment to constantly see what would happen. And what I find intriguing is the idea of these game shows and how they do affect society. So in one instance right now, we have this show called The Wall, right? And this is like the dumbest game ever, where you're rewarded for knowing Hollywood trivia. Do you know who the lead character of the X-Files is? You win $1 million. But of course you can't, and you're on there cheering this ball that's falling down these little plinkets, trying to get it into the slot that says $1 million. And you're out there, cheering the ball on. Come on, ball, fall over here. Come on, fall over there. And what I noticed about this show, The Wall, was that the only people allowed on this show are proper citizens, those that were involved in helping thwart 9/11, those that were there at the, you have to have a position in the psychopathic society that is supporting this system, or else you won't even get a chance to be on this show. So first of all, you've got to be a good citizen, a proper citizen, in order to win the $1 million, millions of dollars for this ball falling down a wall. Meanwhile, if we contrast this with the television show Survivor, these people are beating each other to death over a hot dog,
Yeah.
And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I only ever watched one episode of Survivor. I think when it first came out, I don't know, 12 years ago. And I've never watched it since. It's it's programming. That's what it is. I mean, I knew where they were going to go when they started off, and I realized that, of course, the psychopath is always going to win this game,
Right.
and that's to train the people that are watching it, because and especially kids, so they're watching that. So let's see, you got all these people now. The first thing that happens is anybody who is honest and decent and tries to help somebody out, they're voted off first. So
Exactly.
let's get rid of the nice guys and the nice girls. Get rid of them. They're no fun to watch. And then what's left at the end of the season or whatever is, the three biggest psychopaths that they could find, and now they're going to try to compete and betraying each other and backstabbing each other. And so what is the values that program is teaching? Well, it's the values of being a psychopath. That's what it's teaching, and that's what all our media does. The art, the music, listen to rap. Jesus, Murphy, this is, you've got songs that are glorifying murder and rape, and and then people wonder why there's so much murder and rape, and well, you got songs glorifying it, for crying out loud. And then you got art, I'm an artist too, and I love beauty and I love art, but go to see a modern art museum, well, what a garbage, So art nowadays has to be ugly, and again, reflecting the psychopathic mentality. If it's not, uh, paintings of blood and dismemberment, and or the artist's feces canned, and oh, come on. So, and then the TV, the movies, everything, it's all designed to program us. Our culture is pure poison. And, that's my advice is anybody that's awake and wants to wake up is remove yourself as much as possible from our current media and our current culture. Get away from the TV and all the stupid YouTube videos and the radios and the magazines and the movies and the art galleries. I mean, and I'm an artist, but I love art, but I wouldn't recommend people go to an art gallery because all of it is designed to rot your soul and turn you into a psychopath. So the less of it you can be exposed to, the healthier you will be.
Yeah, without a doubt, there is nearly zero beauty in our lives.
Yeah.
This modern art that I see in cities, it's like anything that they can put up that is the most bland, blasé, mediocrity, right? That's where we're going.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
While we're all heading for mediocrity, I'm going to move over to my Twitter feed here. The elite and the psychopaths would most likely be the first to get in line for genetic modification. So let me just share with the audience here a quick article. And again, follow along at Freeman TV. And the title of this article is, Let's Hope Long Long, the Beagle, Doesn't Bite Us in the Butt. Now, a beagle called Long Long has the science world excited. This is the first genetically modified cloned superdog. Chinese scientists proudly announced their contribution to the evolution of genetics last week, inching mankind closer to hair-raising science fiction. The cloned and genetically modified puppy was born on May 28th in a laboratory in Beijing by a company called Sinogene. And his father, Apple, was actually created by gene editing, things like CRISPR, able to just, the cheapest gene editing out there, right? So now we have genetically modified superdogs that are producing other superdogs. How quick before this gets into the psychopath's hands? How quick do you think, Stefan, would a psychopath jump on the chance to be genetically modified?
Oh, it's already in the psychopath's hands. I firmly believe that by the time we get a sniff of any new technology, it's already been around 10 years. And so I'm pretty sure they've been doing this for a while now. And it's a typical psychopath sort of pursuit. Remember, psychopaths are themselves machines. They're empty inside. They don't have a conscience, and I don't believe they have, and then we could open up this for all kinds of arguments, but something that you would call a soul. I don't believe they have anything like that. And so what they are attracted to is the emptiness and the mechanical machine-like nature of robots and machines and transhumanism and genetic modification, because they have no love or appreciation of nature and beauty and the natural way of things. No, everything about them is artificial and anti-life, anti-nature. And so this type of research, well, I can understand if you want to research it for certain, to cure certain inheritable diseases. Okay, that's fine. I don't hear them coming out with a lot of breakthroughs in that regard. We have lots of breakthroughs on how they can manipulate the genome to create their mutant creatures. That they're doing a lot of. Not too many cures for, inheritable genetic disorders. I haven't heard of any. But if that was what they were doing, I would say, okay, I can understand that. But, but as with everything else, we have billions of dollars for cancer research on how to poison people and no research on whether or not, something like baking soda would help,
Right.
or or medical marijuana. Oh, we can't have that, despite all the evidence to the contrary. There's no research there, but lots of research on how to, convert mustard gas into some poison that will kill you faster than the cancer can. So this is our whole system. Everything is psychopathic. It's all been tainted by this poison. And so medical research, of course, yeah, they can't wait. If they could give themselves an injection and grow an extra foot between their legs, they'd be the first ones to do it.
Absolutely. And giving over to robo-advisors, a robot that really has no conscience, just goes through all the factors and decides what's right and wrong. That's a scary thing. One of the articles in my Twitter feed was a DC office building got a new security robot, and it immediately went out and drowned itself, committing suicide, as it were. So now we have suicidal robots, and meanwhile, Elon Musk, of SpaceX, Tesla, and PayPal, also now no longer advisor to the president. He says we better regulate AI before robots start killing people.
Why would they kill people? And this whole AI, and it's it's like this is going to get away from us, and we're going to create this evil machine, and it's going to we're going to be looking at the Terminator movies scenario, right, where you have this mass worldwide.
Google is Skynet. I mean,
it is, yeah. But if it's evil, it's because the psychopaths are programming it to be evil, not because it became evil by itself. I mean, that doesn't happen. I mean, our human emotions evolved over millions of years and involve, everything from chemical balances and electrical discharges in the brain. I mean, this is, a long process, and some machine is not going to be able to replicate that. It would be impossible for a machine to suddenly, have human emotions and, like we all anthropomorphize things, and so the tendency to anthropomorphize AI would be even greater. But, if we have this machine, it's because these psychopaths are going to be programming it. That's why. And I think it's an easy out for them, too. So they're going to put everything on the 5G network, and, the $10 bill in your pocket is going to be talking to your toaster, is going to be talking to your shoes, and, So, and all that information is going to be fed back, and then when the system decides to screw you over, they'll say, "Oh, it's not us. It's AI just did it on its own."
I'm sorry, the robot said it's your time to go.
Yeah, you've outlived your usefulness.
Yes. Okay, so on that point, then the other article that we should look at is Amazon can crush a company just by filing for a trademark.
Yeah. Well, this is an old strategy. In researching my book, The Art of Urban Survival, and also researching psychopaths, I read a couple of dozen books on the history of cons and scams and swindles, and it goes way back. I'm surprised at some of these swindles, the Ponzi schemes. I mean, they ran
Just
Ponzi.
Look at Coca-Cola. I mean, I don't mean to interrupt, but my God, when you see the creation of Coca-Cola, I mean, or the creation of Mormonism, one or the other.
Yeah. So, where were we? What were you saying about that?
We were discussing the idea of psychopathic corporations on top of this situation that can just dominate and take care, and they don't care. They're just going to take down any little company they can. And
yeah. So that's a very old scam. It works like this. It's really easy. What you do is you go into a town, let's say a small town. This happened back in the turn of the century. You go into a small town, you open up a store that competes. Let's say it's a hardware store. You open up a hardware store, and that competes with the other hardware store in town. Now, you've got lots of money and you got lots of friends. So what you do is you sell all your stuff cheap, right? You undercut the other hardware store so that eventually you drive them out of business, right? Now you're taking a loss the whole time because you can't undercut the other hardware store without taking a loss. But if you have enough money behind you, you can take that loss and you can handle that loss for 10 years, Then you've driven the other hardware store out of business. Now you triple your rates, you make all your money back. So you form a monopoly to drive competition out of business, And you do that by undercutting everybody. Look at Walmart and Starbucks and all these things, that they come in there, and all the local coffee shops and local mom and pop stores are out of business in a year. They can't compete. But the reason these big companies are able to undercut everybody, one is, of course, the discount from volume buying that they can pass on, but they still operate at a loss. Isn't Amazon running at a multi-billion-dollar deficit as we speak? So they run it at a loss. I mean, I can't afford to go $10 billion into debt. I wish I could,
Yeah.
And so they run it at a loss, and they drive other people out of business, and then they're the only player in town, and then watch what happens. You're under a dictatorship. You're under an economic dictatorship, because now the only place to buy anything is from Amazon, and now they're going to really charge you to make up for all those years that they lowered the prices to drive the rest out of business.
Now, your website is chinastrategies.com. And when I think of Walmart and when I think of these corporations, I always think of China and their productions. I'm not sure why you chose chinastrategies.com as your URL, and I was kind of curious about that.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was sort of a mistake. This was back in 1999. My first book came out, and everybody said, well, you should get a website. And I go, oh, okay. And you should name it after your book. And my book was, Chinese Strategies, the first book. So that's why I registered that URL back then. And since then, I just kept adding stuff to the website. And then, after a few years, I had so much material, and I was, pretty high on their Google ratings or whatever for my website, because it was all original content. Back in those days, it mattered, And so I never changed it, so everything's on there. But it's named after my first book. But I can tell you a story. I was in China in the year 2000, and I was there. I was doing public relations for a Chinese internet startup company out of Silicon Valley. And my job was to take a group of venture capitalists on a tour of China, from Beijing to Shanghai to Shenzhen. And they had arranged this big tour for us, and we got to have state dinners with, the mayors of Beijing and the mayors of Shanghai. And then we went to visit all these cities and these factories. So they would take us out to some factory, like there was one place called Car City. It was a whole city built from the ground up and dedicated to manufacturing automobiles. And everything was in the same city, residents, hospitals, schools, factories, research facilities. And it was very efficient, and it was wonderful. And we were given the grand tour of this place, and it was marvelous, brand new. And every building I went to had this brass plaque on the front, donated by Hewlett-Packard, donated by Microsoft, donated by IBM, donated by, and I'm thinking, how come all these companies are donating buildings in China when I couldn't get a job back in Canada? It's nice that they have all this money to build these futuristic manufacturing facilities, but why in China? Why not in Canada? And I asked a question. I said, is this city, is it in operation now? Because I didn't see any people in there. You've no doubt heard about these ghost cities in China, where they built.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So this was like a ghost city. It's brand new, and there's nobody living there. And they said, "Oh yeah, no, it's a holiday today. That's why you don't see any people." But I went, sure, right, because what I didn't see was a coffee cup on any desk, not a piece of paper in any of the trash cans, not a pencil on any of the desks. I mean, I'm talking, 40-story office buildings, 20 of them, 30 of them. Each one filled with 200-300 workstations, with brand new computers. I mean, it was unbelievable, the money and the wealth that went into investing in this, and none of it was invested into. And it was all American corporations. And I'm thinking, where are they doing this in America anywhere? Why China? So this was planned from the start. This globalism. And I think the reason why they went over to China is because the Chinese are really easily manipulated. Sorry to all my Chinese friends, but you go over there and you see the way these people work. It's inhuman. Not even slaves during the Roman Empire had to work so long and so hard for so little benefit as the average Chinese factory worker. I mean, it is a horror show. They work 12, 14, 16 hours days, 6.5 days a week. They live in company dormitories with 8 people in a 10 by 20-foot bedroom, on bunk beds. They eat at the company cafeteria, and that's all they do is work and work at these menial, repetitive tasks. And to the point where a lot of these factories, and especially the ones that manufacture Apple and iPhone and all that, they have suicide prevention nets strung around their office and factories to prevent their workers from climbing to the roof and throwing themselves off, because it happens so many times. They have to put up safety nets. I mean, imagine, do you think the average American worker would be prepared to live in that kind of monotonous slavery? Even the Chinese are trying to commit suicide to escape from this. That's why they're in China, because they can exploit these people, and my heart goes out to the Chinese people. But they've been under an empire for 4,000 years. They're really used to being abused, and so with these big corporations coming in there and setting up operations, everybody thinks, "Oh, that's so wonderful. Chinese are making a lot of money." No, few psychopaths make a lot of money, but the vast majority, oh my God, their lives are horrible, and so. That's why they're over there, and that's why IBM and Hewlett Packard and all these big guys and Microsoft and everybody went over there, and they've been over there already for 20 years, because they knew this was coming, and they knew this is what they were going to do, and they knew they were going to screw the average American worker, and so that's part of the whole plan.
Right. So then we get to A Time to Kill. And this idea that we will have to take this on at some point in this game. We're going to have to take out the psychopaths, right? I mean, we're good, loving, caring people that want to nurture everything. No one really wants to think about the fact that they may have to kill to survive this game.
Well, not they. So for those listeners who might not understand the reference, A Time to Kill is an excerpt from my book, The Way of the Warrior, and it's on YouTube, and it's just a 5-minute audio presentation of that chapter called A Time to Kill. And that chapter applies to warriors. Not the average person isn't, the average person is useless for any practical purpose. I like people, but honest to God, it's just most of them just are. They're good for nothing. They're not going to fight the system. They're not going to, load your rifles while you're in the foxhole for you. They're not going to, carry the water to you out in the desert if you're on campaigns. They're not going to do anything. So there's going to be a few people that are going to resist, and it's in their nature to resist because they want to be free and they have a conscience and they believe in justice. And those people, I refer to as warriors. And there will come a time where it's not that you have to kill, but you would have to prepare to kill. It's a psychological game that we're playing here, and it's also a spiritual game, because a lot of this war that we are facing, because we are in a battle right now, we are at war, we are being attacked by these psychopaths on multiple fronts. We're being poisoned with the chemtrails, we're being poisoned with the vaccines and the GMO and the fluoride in the water. We have electronic warfare, we got the 4G and the 5G and microwave radiation, destroying our DNA. We've got the mainstream media and the movies, which is just pure mind rot. It's candy floss for the brain.
Let's not forget fast food as a weapon system.
Fast food as a weapon system. We got the education system there to make sure everybody's an idiot. We've got the medical system to ensure that everybody dies a miserable death. So we are at war and we're taking casualties. Everybody that dies from cancer, that's a casualty. It's no difference than if they were shot by an enemy combatant with a rifle. They're dead. That they died from cancer is for the same reason. An enemy combatant killed them. If they died because they committed suicide, it's because our culture destroyed their minds and they've lost all hope for life and killed themselves. No difference than if they were shot by some SS guard or something like that. We are taking casualties. People are dropping dead all the time. And so this is a real war. And part of the war is a psychological warfare. And the reason I wrote in the book, the chapter, Time to Kill, is because if you don't have this mental determination to fight back and kill if necessary, you will already lose. And if you do have that mental determination, then you have a better chance of winning, or actually it's your only chance for winning. Let me give you an example. This happened last summer. I was sitting outdoors, and everyone that knows me knows that every night I go out and I sit by the lake and I have myself a couple of beers. And everybody gives me trouble for having a couple of beers. I'm sorry, I need a couple of beers. And the reason I go out late at night is because there's nobody around. I've got the whole world to myself. I sit, look at the stars. It's quiet. I watch the moon reflect off the lake, and listen to the birds. It's beautiful. Now I'm sitting there minding my own business, and I got 4 guys walking down the pathway, which I've never seen before. And these 4 guys think they can strong arm me into giving them some stuff. Like, they're saying, "Oh, you got some smokes?" I said, "No, I don't have any smokes." Well, what do you got? We need something, And so, like, they think I'm afraid of them because there's 4 of them, right? But in my mind, I'm already thinking, how am I going to dispose of their bodies? Because
You're a kung fu master.
Yeah, and now they are really pissing me off because I'm minding my own business. I'm enjoying what the Japanese call my wa, which is, my spiritual space, my harmony, my communion with nature, And now I got these jerks, these a-holes walking down, and they think they're going to strong arm me and intimidate me, right? So they say, "Well, you better give us something. Well, I'm going to beat you up." So at this point, I just get quiet, and I give them my stink eye. I said, "Okay, come on." "Yeah, well, I'm going to steal your bike because I have my bicycle." I said, "Okay, go ahead, take it. Come on." But they sensed something because they all backed off. They continued walking, and they were yelling, "Next time, it's a good thing I'm in a good mood tonight," or whatever bullshit.
Right.
But the thing is, if I was weak and if I was intimidated by these guys and if I was afraid, they would have screwed me over, right? They would have taken my wallet. They would have taken my bicycle. They would have taken the 2 beers I had in my backpack. If I didn't, but again, it helps having 35 years of kung fu training, right? But the key difference with that is, in my mind, I am already going to mess you up. You are going down, and I don't care. And I'm already planning my route home to avoid any CCTV cameras, so they can't trace my my whereabouts the night before when they drag the bodies out of the lake. And that's what protected me. So I didn't have to hurt them. I didn't have to attack them. But I was prepared to, and they sensed it and they backed off. And this is what I'm talking about with the warriors too, and with the system that we live under. We've got to learn to say no. Enough of this nonsense. I will not stand quietly anymore. And if you persist, I'm going to open my mouth, and I'm not going to shut up until you guys have stopped what you're doing or you're getting out of my face. I mean, we've got to, all of us, stand up to all these indignities that we suffer every day under this system. We have to stop. We have to start saying no. And you have to be prepared to back up your no with determination and violence if necessary. And that means, if you go to jail, then you go to jail. I mean, there was a famous, I think Cicero wrote, the famous Roman historian said that any great man would have done something in his life that necessitated him going to jail, you know.
Well,
Um,
I did, and I'm it didn't necessitate me going to jail. I went to jail for an accident, and on kind of the opposite side of this story, which I don't know whether it's going to fit into this at all, but I have a story to go along with that, and I was tossed into prison. Right, I'm one of the nicest, loving, generous. I don't kill bugs. Right, I forcibly remove them from my house. I ask them to just leave. And all of a sudden, I was thrown in amongst this tribe of criminals. There were other people in there that were there for stealing bicycles and minor crimes or violating their probation or things, and I would, kind of tribe up and form alliances with these type of meager characters. But at one point, I found myself surrounded by a large group of men. And I happened to notice as I was walking by that they were doing some sort of transaction for a gold necklace or something. I didn't care. I just was walking by and the gold caught my eye. And, well, they wanted me at that moment and they wanted to frighten me. And so all of a sudden I'm surrounded by these guys and I'm just standing there and I have my hands shoved as deep down in my pockets as they will go. This group was grabbing at my arms, trying to pull my hand out of my pocket in order to, see my number and name that was banded around my arm. And I just stood there silently, not saying anything, but I knew what I was doing, because I was in a position of no hope. And my best bet, as far as I could tell, was to show no signs of violence, no signs of aggression whatsoever, keep my hands firmly in my pockets so that they would not ever think that I was going to try and make a move. And sure enough, they got bored with me and just let me walk on.
yeah, well, in my book, The Art of Urban Survival, I have a chapter on what to do if you're sent to prison. And
I wish I had read that.
yeah, and what you did was instinctively the correct thing to do. I mean, there's a time to fight, and there's a time to use other tactics, right? Again, the book, The 36 Strategies. When you read the book, a lot of times the solution to conflict is not violence. So what you did was you kind of played the gray man. You don't give them anything to work with, right? You just shut up and you mind your own business and you keep your head down, and that's it. You just want people to not notice you. And so that's called playing the gray man, and that is the best strategy for in the situation that you're in there. With me, I was on the street, and I'll be honest with you, I could have played that a number of different ways with these guys. I could have schmoozed them. I'm pretty charming. I have
Right.
I can talk to anybody, Freeman. I can talk with homeless people. I can talk with bankers. I will always, because I'm very empathetic and I can read people pretty well and I can find something in common that I can talk to them about. So I could have played it a different way. I could have charmed these guys, right?
Right. Absolutely.
But I'm old and grumpy now, right? I could
Yes.
play you guys, 5 or 6 different ways I could play you guys, but I'm not in the mood to play people right now because I just want my space. So get the hell out of here before I have to kill you, and that was my attitude. And they read it and they left.
Yes.
But to be honest with you, that wasn't really the best strategy. I always tell people, don't use violence unless you absolutely have to. But there may come a time when you have to. And if you're not mentally prepared now to fight, you won't when the time comes, because the way you train is the way you react in real life. So if you haven't done any training of standing up for yourself, then when the time comes for you to stand up for yourself, you're not going to do it. How would you know how to do it? It's like watching YouTube videos on how to ride a bicycle. Unless you actually ride the bicycle, you're not going to know how to do it. So the same thing with the chapter on a time to kill. You've got to be able to call on a reserve of strength and courage, that you won't back down, and that if fists are going to fly, then so be it. You'll be a part of it. And just that mental attitude will already prepare you for it. And then hopefully you won't ever have to go there. But I'll be honest with you, there's a certain advantage to it. It's psychological. And when you have that advantage, then playing another game will work even better. For example, if deep down inside I'm still really like shaking in my boots from these little thugs, right? And now I tried to play them, they would still sense I'm scared. And then my play wouldn't work. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah,
It's
like I can manipulate them, I could charm them, I could, do say different things and do handle it a different way. But if they were still able to sense that I'm afraid, then those other tactics wouldn't work for me. So what I'm saying is, whatever you do, whatever strategy you use to avoid conflict and violence, that strategy has to come from a position of confidence, self-confidence, and strength. Because if deep down inside you're a coward and you're afraid, then all your little tricks aren't going to work anyways, because these are predators. They smell blood in the water. They smell when you're scared. And when you're scared, that's an invitation for them to use you and abuse you.
absolutely. I had another instance like that where I was surrounded by skinheads and they thought my friend was Jewish. He was Italian, but they came after us. And at first, I had a guitar, and I started holding the guitar like a weapon. And they saw that immediately and were like, "Oh, what are you planning on doing?" I mean, they asked me straight up, "Are you planning on hitting me with that thing?" Because they had baseball bats with nails in them and chains. I'm not lying. And, me and my skinny little friend, both a couple of skinny little guys sitting there. And so I had to get crafty, like you're saying. And I started just blabbing. I mean, I'm a pretty good talker as well. And I'm not really frightened of people either. I've had lots of experience in life. So I was able to start chatting with these guys, even though they're standing there with chains and baseball bats. And I got them to agree that they liked Jane's Addiction, which is kind of strange because he's Jewish and Hispanic. And, but they started getting along with me, and I started building a rapport with these guys. And finally, I convinced them that they didn't want to come over here and beat us up. And they were like, all right. But suddenly, out of nowhere, the little girl in the group just didn't get her entertainment. And she came up and threw her drink on my friend, which then erupted the whole gang, dispelled my spell, and my friend got punched in the face. And I got us out of there as quick as I could. But
Yeah. No, well, your life experience has taught you well. That's the thing to do, is to talk your way out of it whenever possible.
Absolutely.
I was in a bar in Taipei, and I was leaving with this girl, and this guy comes up to me and he goes, "Wait a minute, I was talking to her first. I think she owes me a drink or something like this." And I said, "Well, she's going out with me now, maybe tomorrow or something, whatever." And he goes, "Well, I think we should step outside and settle this." Now, at the time, I was, training like 8 hours a day in kung fu.
Yeah, that's the thing, folks. You never know when you're up against a kung fu master. I've had a few friends that could totally put you down without any. And that confidence really matters, right, Stefan?
Yeah, and you can't tell, like from my experience with St. John Ambulance, I tell people you can never tell how people are going to react in a crisis. Somebody gets hurt and there's blood all over the place, and the guy that you thought was the real tough, had his shit together kind of guy, he loses it and throws up, and he can't stand the sight of blood. You don't know who is going to lose it during a crisis. So you can't tell with the guys who are fighters either. He might look like some dork or whatever like that, but he might have been taking jujitsu for 15 years and is really good at what he does. So I never judge a book by his cover, right? So with this guy, he's asking me to step outside in some brawl in the back alley of Taipei. I mean, you can write books about stuff like that. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Right?
right.
What a great story that'll make. But then at the other hand, I looked at the guy and I could tell, geez, I could mop the floor with him. He was a foot shorter than me, and not in shape. He had a little pot belly and all that. I could tell. So I just said, look, buddy, that's not, no need for that. How about I buy you a beer and you just calm down and we'll think about it later. And so I bought him a beer and brought him over to the bar. Bartender, whatever this guy wants on me. He sat down. He seemed pleased. I walked out with the girl. No problem. So to me, that was the best way to handle that. Like, sure, I could be the big tough guy and say, sure, be happy. Then aren't you going to be surprised when I kick your ass? I mean, but why would I do that? Like, I don't want to hurt this guy,
Right.
like, what do I care,
You're
and
not a
what would it mean
psychopath.
to me? Yeah. Like, it would be like, oh, if I went to the grade school and started beating up sixth graders, like, what, it makes me a man? No, it
Yeah.
doesn't. Same thing with, am I going to get into barroom fights with guys that are just had a couple of too much to drink and they suddenly feel brave? What am I going to do? Hurt these people? No. That makes me a better person, makes me tough? No, it doesn't make me tough. So
Okay.
that's how to handle that.
Well, we're wrapping up this first hour here. I think we got about 10 more minutes or so. Um, and I wanted to get to the idea. One thing that Bruce Lee said that I thought was fantastic was everything is kung fu. And this kind of stuck in my mind because when I'm doing my laundry, when I'm doing cleaning, I'm always doing it in a flowing, feeling manner. I'll stretch my body in particular ways. I'll shake my laundry around. I like to put fluid motion into everything I do. And I want to discuss with you some of the path of the warrior as we close out this show, get into the concepts of the outsider, how to become self-aware, and how we get to this warrior state.
Okay. Are we going for break now?
No, we got about 10 more minutes to get into that. And then when we get to the members section, we're just going to have fun.
Okay, so yeah, absolutely. With Bruce Lee, and he's like the only, well-known martial artist that I actually admire, the only sort of movie star martial artist that I admire. And I've read his book and the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, and he kind of, he regurgitates a lot of Taoist writings. If you read the Tao Te Ching, half of what Bruce Lee is saying is taken from the Tao Te Ching. But he's absolutely correct. Your life should be a kung fu. Now, kung fu in Chinese simply means skill, right? Actually the proper term for martial arts would be wushu or chunfa, the way of the fist or the way of war. But kung fu simply means skill, but it's taken from the idea of zazen in the Zen tradition as well. For example, you've heard of the Japanese tea ceremony. Now, the Japanese tea ceremony is a very ritualized activity where you prepare and serve tea. That's all you do, right? So basically, you're just serving tea. You're making a pot of tea and you're serving it to guests. But every movement, every posture, the way you sit, the way you stir the pot, the way you grab the cups, the way you drink the cups, everything is scripted in order for it to be symbolic and a ritual which brings your awareness to the event. Because you're never more aware than when you're practicing and going through sort of like a ritual. And so the movements have to be fluid. You can't be choppy and jerky or hurried or unbalanced. Everything has to be in balance and move smoothly and naturally. And so what you're talking about and what Bruce Lee talked about, like, there's kung fu in folding laundry, there's kung fu in flower arranging, there's kung fu and I do the same thing, because I stretch throughout the day. So while I'm waiting for my coffee, for my water to boil for coffee, I've got my leg up on the counter stretching, things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you can bring that to your life becomes more harmonious. And the same thing happens when you do Tai Chi. If you know the feeling when you've been in a boat, let's say you've been in a canoe and you've been out on the water for like 2 hours, and then you get back on shore and you sit down in the lawn chair, but your body is still like up and down with the waves. You still feel that motion, the wave-like motion, right? So Tai Chi does that. You practice Tai Chi you need to do it for a good half hour, an hour, right? But once you're finished, those movements don't stop. They carry throughout the day. So the way you open the door is Tai Chi, or Kung Fu. The way you walk down the street is Kung Fu. And it not only makes your body move more naturally and in harmony, it also brings your mind and focus into it. So this is one of the premier techniques for enlightenment and for awakening, is to be self-aware and in the moment. And the more often you can be self-aware and in the moment, the more powerful your awareness will grow. It's food for your awareness. And when you grow that awareness, you wake up, and then more and more life comes through. That's why I'm so opposed to those smartphones. You see these people walking down the street with always staring at the goddamn, smartphone. I mean, this is the opposite of kung fu in life. Their awareness is not there. The way they move is they walk like those wind-up tin robot toys that they used to manufacture in Japan in the 50s. I mean, there's nothing natural about these people. They're not aware. They're not moving. They're not balanced. They're not uh, anything. They're zombies. So we want to fight that. You want to fight that with that flow, with that movement, as much as possible, as often as you can throughout the day. Stop thinking to yourself all these. We have this internal dialogue, this endless recorded loop of thoughts and words that we play back on our cerebral cortex, and that does no good. Stop the internal dialogue. Stop yippity yapping to yourself inside your own head like we're talking to somebody. Who are we talking to, right?
Right.
Stop that. Step back. Relax. Breathe. Look around you. Listen. Smell. Right? Feel with the body. Feel the sunlight on your face, the wind through your hair. Feel the earth through your feet. And when you do that, that is kung fu. And the ultimate purpose of kung fu is enlightenment. It's not just, if we just want to learn how to beat up people, you can go to schools, take boxing for a year. You can beat pretty much up everybody. But kung fu as a path, as a way, the way of the warrior, the ultimate purpose is to become enlightened. So all the fighting stuff, it's good to have, it's good to know, but that's not enlightenment by itself. It is a tool to train yourself and to train your body to be more aware and more self-aware and more in the moment. And the more often you can do that, the stronger your spirit becomes. And I think we need strong spirits to fight the madness.
I've learned that this strong spirit and self being consciously aware of this absolutely creates your future. Like I have had people, I've lived, Stefan, in a van for 10 years. And boy, you got to learn the art of people to do that. I mean, friendship and trustworthiness were my go-to things to, if I wasn't friendly, if I wasn't able to make friends, I didn't eat. And I learned as I would have people with me that just didn't have the skill of they would either have a chip on their shoulder, think that they were entitled or anything of these nature, and their path just didn't work out. Even though we were on the exact same trek, for me, things were awesome. For them, they were constantly excluded, constantly, people sensed it. And it really, it actually, getting control, being self-aware and in the moment, then transforms your future, transforms everything that's going to happen to you, and changes your entire life. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree, Freeman, because like without self-awareness, you can't direct your life. Then that means if there's nobody home, who's running the machinery?
Right.
And who's running the machinery is our culture, is the evil psychopaths that control every aspect of our lives. They're running the machinery. They're the ones that give you your political opinions. They're the ones that give you your religious opinions. They're the ones that dictate what taste you, what foods you'll eat, what activities you'll engage in, because there's nobody home. And if there's nobody home, then you're just giving your body over to the lunatics that run the asylum. So you have to be at home. You can't direct your life if you're not aware. So what you said is absolutely correct.
Yeah, and it's never been more clear, Stefan, than today as we are witnessing these tribal lines and alliances against Trump, and the way that the world is just freaking out at this moment, and everybody is battling everybody over complete nonsense. It's infuriating on many levels.
Yeah. Like I have my opinions, and I have my ideas, but I'm not married to any of them.
Right.
If something comes along that makes more sense to me or that contradicts what I've believed or what I've been taught, I will look into it. There's a lot of things I thought, no, that can't be true. Oh, that's crazy. No, that's got to be conspiracy theory. And but I've always had an open mind. And I thought, well, okay, well, it sounds really crazy and bizarre, but I'll look into it. I'll keep an open mind, and oh my God, then you do a little bit of research, and sometimes I think it's bull, and I don't accept it, but many times I've found out that my previous opinions on the subject has been wrong, and I'm not afraid to admit that. I wasn't born omnipotent and omniscient. I'm born a human being, and I have limited capacities for knowing the truth of the world. So I'm always open to learning. But with these people, you can't, especially what's going on now with the political left and right and Nazis and Antifa and all this
I
nonsense.
know.
I mean, you can't talk to any of them. Nobody will listen for a moment. They won't shut up long enough to actually allow a thought to come into their minds.
Right.
So what can you do with these people, and again, this is the warrior tradition and why I'm kind of, promoting it through my book and through my talking, which is, like you are not your opinion. That is not who you are. You don't have to defend it to the death. You might be wrong. And therefore, there's no reason to die for your political beliefs. The only reason to die is when you're fighting for freedom. And so far, nobody's fighting for their freedom right now that I can see. So no need to kill yourself or kill anybody else because they belong to a different political belief system or a different religion, whatever. You're not married to it. It's not who you are. But for most people, or for a lot of people, it is who they are. That's all there is to them. Take away their implanted programming and what's left. You've wiped the hard drive.
Right.
Now there's no software program left anymore. So it's just going to be blue screen for these people. So yeah, you take away their political beliefs. They don't want any opposing opinions because why? Well, they'll go into blue screen mode. Their minds will be completely wiped, and they will experience what I think they used to call death of the ego. And look, you are not your ego. You are a conglomeration of many different factors, and the ego might be part of it, but that's not who you are in totality. So there's no need to be so invested in, you see the same thing on, whatever YouTubes and Twitters and all that, the flame wars and the trolls that come out, if you say the sky is blue, there's suddenly 100 guys on there telling you what an idiot you are because everybody knows the sky is green. And, really, you really need to get that upset about something.
Oh, well, geez, Stefan, I just didn't even think of that. But social networking has just skyrocketed the narcissism to unimaginable extremes. I mean,
Yeah.
whoa.
Yeah, it's awful. It's awful. Now, personally, I never delete any of the comments on my videos. I believe in free speech. You want to call me a douchebag? Go ahead. I don't. Do I care? Do I care what some stranger says? I'm pretty sure. I'm 99% sure. If I ever met this person, that person would be beneath my dignity to spend any time talking to. Anyways, same thing. I'm not going to go beat up 6-year-olds at the public school because it does nothing for me. Neither am I going to argue or present ideas to mental midgets. So I don't care what they say. Go ahead, call me whatever, make whatever comments. I'm not editing it because above all, I'm an anarchist. So I believe everybody has the right to say whatever the hell they want, make themselves sound as stupid as they want. It's not my job to edit you. But on the other hand, oh my God, these people, what are you doing? You spend so much time writing out these hateful, vindictive
Right?
comments to everybody. I mean, that's your life. That's your life. You really, you're taking time out from going for a walk in the park and listening to the birds to do this.
Right.
This is important to you. I mean, so what am I going to say to somebody like that? I mean, you're beneath me. I'm sorry. It sounds elitist. And I'm getting a little bit more elitist as I get older. It's the old man's sort of prerogative that we no longer tolerate fools lightly.
That's right. Well, folks, we are discussing the art of urban survival. and we're realizing that we are in a losing game, and possibly we are in the basement of a psychopath just waiting to be chopped up. When we get back on the other side, we're going to discuss a lot of governmental genocide. We're going to get into the Church of One and how we can find our own selves in this situation. Being a community builder as well, we're going to discuss how to get from being the outsider to the insider, and how it could be possible that we could pull through in a world crafted by psychopaths. So, Stefan, please tell everyone what you got coming up, how they can get your books, and where they can follow you.
Well, you can get my books on Amazon, and I mean, it's the only game in town. You got to play along. And but
Make
if
sure they don't trademark your stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry. No, go ahead.
You can buy my books directly from me from my website, China Strategies, and if you use PayPal, because if you buy from me, I don't have to give Amazon their royalty, so I pass that royalty on to you. So my books are like $25 on Amazon. You can get it for $20 or $15 through my website.
Yeah, seriously, selling on Amazon, you make $1. If you actually, folks, go to the person's website, then they might get $8, So yeah. It really is a big difference when you go to purchase somebody's books that you actually go to their website and purchase it straight through them.
Yeah, because, well, it helps me out because I make a little bit more money. Amazon makes less money, and I pass the savings on to the people that are buying the books. So it's a win-win-win,
Awesome. So chinastrategies.com. Do you have any speaking engagements coming up or anything?
No.
Okay. Just checking in.
Yeah, I'm working on booking some engagements coming up, but no, nothing recently. No.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. You're here. You're here on the Free Zone, and that's what matters.
Yeah. I gave up speaking at numerous conventions just to be on the Freeman Show.
There it is, folks. Now you know how important this show really is.
It's very important.
It really is. I mean, this is one of the few shows out there that really is standing for humanity's goodness and isn't getting caught in the left-right paradigm, isn't getting caught up in this pathological narcissism. And, I guess part of that is because I ended up here by accident. I didn't mean to be here. My ego did not put me in this chair. It was just life circumstances that because I was open and willing to discuss things with people and friendly, that I ended up in this position. But I certainly never chose to do this. I would have never thought I was going to be a public speaker ever in my life. So, now you know my motivation here is simply you, folks out there, and us analyzing our world so that we can figure out how to escape the asylum. I mean, I'm trying to find that first step that we can all take. So we're going to pick this up in the members section and look at that. Look at how we can take this first step and find out, are you a warrior or are you a psychopath? Or even a secondary psychopath? We'll have lots to think about. So thank you all for tuning in this hour, and I hope that you all will head over to freemantv.com and subscribe, help support my efforts and keep this thing going. And the more of you that come, the more I can produce, and I really want to. But I have been, this entire time, I have never had a savings account in 12 years of doing this show. So believe me, I am here not for profit. I am here simply because I love all of you. And I'm certain Stefan is the same way. So get over to chinastrategies.com and let's learn the art of urban survival. So members, we'll see you on the other side. The rest of you guys, thank you so much for being out there, because we need you out there. So we'll see you all next week.